on AM 560, The Answer.
13 at O'Hare, 14 Lakefront. Your next news update is at 7:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Find holiday gift ideas for you and the family at the leading indoor shooting range, Shoot Point Blank. Check out great savings on ammo, accessories, firearms, and more. Not sure what to get? Shoot Point Blank offers gift cards too. See shootpointblank.com for details.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Before House Democrats assembled to collude with Putin vis-a-vis supporting the trade deal that Trump has negotiated with the U.S., with Canada and Mexico, they announced 2 articles of impeachment. That chore was given to the Chairman Nadler and Chairman Schiff, of course.
Mr. High Pants?
Yes, Jerry Nadler. He certainly
He had to
really
stand on a booster chair.
cuts a swath. He does, Mr. Sardonicus. This is Schiff, though. I thought he provided the.
Oh.
I mean, he is a counselor. He's an officer of the court. He provided a description of the evidence.
I don't know if you are laughing at me or with me, but I'm trying to do my best.
I'm sorry, that was Andy Kaufman. I get those two confused.
They do look an awful lot alike because they're big, wide-eyed, you know?
Yeah, it's too bad Andy Kaufman isn't alive to play Adam Schiff in the movie that Adam Schiff is writing about himself.
Yeah, he's a wannabe screenwriter, though, too.
Here's Schiff's actual description of the evidence, such as it is.
The evidence of the president's misconduct is overwhelming and uncontested. And how could it not be when the president's own words on July 25th, "I would like you to do us a favor, though," lays so bare his intentions, his willingness to sacrifice the national security for his own personal interests. And when the president got caught, he committed his second impeachable act, obstruction of Congress of the very ability to make sure that no one is above the law, not even the President of the United States.
Right. All we had to do with the second charge is pretend we don't have a third branch of government called the judiciary to adjudicate disagreements between the executive and legislative branches. No problem. And I'm sorry, I would like you to do us a favor. That statement, without context, is impeachable, according to Adam Schiff, officer of the court. So you got your, you got your abuse of power, and you got your obstruction of Congress, not justice. You don't have your bribery. You don't have your extortion. You don't have much.
The whole quid pro quo bribery thing, which I thought they're basing their case after, is not a mention of it. And they're not going to be adding that article of impeachment on.
No. This is what's going to be discussed, debated, and ultimately voted on next week. And they got a little bit of persuading to do at least. You've got, according to Politico, a group of some 10 House Democrats that are trying to offer the idea of censure rather than impeachment. They've suffered enough embarrassment under Schiff and Nadler and Pelosi, and they're a little bit worried about their swing district seats at this juncture. And now the other piece of this I want to get to before we get to our friend David Harsanyi is Bill Barr, because Bill Barr made some relatively rare comments to the media yesterday in a sit-down interview with NBC News. And most importantly was his summation of not just the IG's report, but the last 3 years.
The core statement, in my opinion, by the IG is that these irregularities, these misstatements, these omissions were not satisfactorily explained. And I think that leaves open the possibility to infer bad faith.
I think a lot of people will hear what you're saying here and think, well, that's just Bill Barr defending Trump. Your concern about the FBI's investigation is what? Civil libertarian?
I think our nation was turned on its head for 3 years. I think based on a completely bogus narrative that was largely fanned and hyped by an irresponsible press. And I think that there were gross abuses of FISA, and inexplicable behavior that is intolerable in the FBI.
And the follow-up question I would have, which of course wasn't asked by
Pete Williams,
NBC News, fungible anchor, reporter, whatever, is, so what are you going to do about it? When the Attorney General says there was gross abuses inside the Justice Department.
Yeah, what's your next step?
when the Durham report is filed, what do you intend to do about it? Are you going to use the Durham report as the roadmap to go wherever the Durham report suggests you go, including criminal prosecutions potentially? What are we looking at? People want a reckoning. When you hear this talk of gross abuses and misstatements and people's reputations being ruined, Carter Page has an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal on the topic. They want remedies because that renews their faith that the system is somewhat fair. Absent those remedies, those reckonings, it's not. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by David Harsanyi, senior writer for National Review, author of the book First Freedom, A Ride Through America's Enduring History with the Gun from the Revolution to Today. I want to talk to him about guns, too, in the wake of Pensacola. But let's start, David, with impeachment. Rand Paul on Cavuto yesterday say, yeah, there's abuse of power. The abuser of power is Adam Schiff, particularly with respect to his subpoenas for phone records, not President Trump.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously when you look at the IG report, just to go back a second, and you see the abuses that led to 3 years almost of just conspiracy theories and just, accusations of sedition and all kinds of just ridiculous things that threw America into hysterics. Obviously, that's important in the context of everything else we're doing. But the phone records that Adam Schiff went after, and then the unmasking of his colleagues and of a reporter, plays into how Adam Schiff and others who have been anti-Trump have acted from the beginning. They think abusing their power is fine if they're going after Donald Trump. And it's simply, I think they've abused their power in ways that makes Donald Trump look like a piker, frankly. So I think Adam Schiff, particularly, who lied about the FISA reports, who lied about having evidence of criminal conspiracy. And no one in the media, in the mainstream media, in the institutional media, seems to even care about any of that.
Well, why do you think that they didn't go with bribery, the quid pro quo and the bribery article of impeachment? Well,
because I think I had mentioned this to you guys last time. I think when they changed to the word bribery is very something people can understand, so they use that word. But people actually understand bribery, and what they heard was not bribery, and I think it undermined their case in a big way. They probably did another poll, and the poll told them that it wasn't a good idea, and they skipped it. I think they want to keep the charges very wide so that anything they say, even a joke that Donald Trump made during a campaign, can be now thrown into the mix. I think it points to the political problems of impeachment for Democrats.
Matt Taibbi, writing in Rolling Stone, Democrats are not going to want to hear this since conventional wisdom says former House Intel Chief Devin Nunes is a conspiratorial evildoer. But the Horowitz report ratifies the major claims of the infamous Nunes memo. What he said a year and a half ago when he was still House Intel chairman in that memo, the sum and substance of the major assertions, confirmed by the Horowitz report. By contrast, as you just alluded to, the Schiff response memo repudiated by the Horowitz report, and there's no interest in that seemingly either.
Almost everything Nunes said was basically correct in his memo, and almost everything Adam Schiff said, all the main bullet points, were completely wrong. Probably lies because he probably knew that what he was saying was untrue. I don't understand how you can have an IG report with 17 instances of gross negligence, or however he phrased it, and then say it was okay. It met the threshold necessary for an investigation. How many instances of abuse does not meet that threshold? 20, 25? Is there a number? I mean, just because you can't bore into the soul of the agent and determine what their intent was, doesn't mean there wasn't wrongdoing. I mean, that's why we have laws and rules, so that we don't have to bore into the soul of everyone and determine their intent. We can't know why they did it, but they gave no satisfactory answer to why they abused the FISA process 17 times by accident, all skewing in the same direction.
Not only that, not only saying that the investigation, the basis for it was legitimate. How about Diogenes Comey's response to this with the finally we get the report that exonerates the FBI, that says everything Trump said about us is during my time there was false, and the American people can finally see the FBI for what it actually is. Well, I think a lot of American people are looking at what the FBI actually was under Comey, and they're not liking it too much. This is not inspiring confidence, despite the gaslighting that Comey is attempting.
Yeah, I mean, it's insufferable to read that guy and listen to him. It's insufferable to see the coverage of the IG report, which all major media focused on the fact that they had met the threshold of the investigation, the low threshold. Can you imagine believing that it's okay to have one administration spy on another, on their political adversaries during an election using the lowest threshold possible, and then abusing a FISA process that lets you spy on the other campaign? And let's just add this as well. FISA court basically will give you a warrant for anything. I think they have rejected like 0.04% of applications from the start in 1979, and yet you still have to lie 17 times to get it. Can you imagine what kind of abuse that is?
That's a great point. No, you're right. It is exceedingly rare for an application to be rejected, and they still needed to cook them. Yeah, a great
point. The
highest
year their rejections was like 2.8%, which is amazing. And those people probably fixed their applications, lied, and just put them back in. Now, maybe there's widespread abuse there, and Democrats are like, now, some concede we must reform, the FISA process. Well, that's nice. So it's like saying Donald Trump, is really bad, but ignore what he did. Let's reform the executive branch, and ignore what Donald Trump did.
How are the left and right seeing this so differently? I mean, CNN, key takeaways. Report says Russia probe was legal and unbiased. Undercuts 2 years of Trump and Republicans' conspiracy theories.
It didn't say that it was unbiased. I mean, it said that it couldn't find any bias. Okay. But every action of those agents who involved themselves in the FISA applications were biased in the same direction. So, how do they see it differently? Well, when you think the president is Hitler, you see everything in one way, and maybe I would too. But I don't. First of all, I don't understand why it has to be one or the other. But secondly, it's absurd to think that he's Hitler. So all these abuses, I think, are really dangerous in the long term. I mean, what stopped Donald Trump from getting a warrant, having some lackey get a warrant and go spy on the Joe Biden orbit? Nothing.
Well, that's the myopic nature of this, right? That's the short-sightedness of this all, and that's one of the things Rand Paul and many others have pointed out, that you're setting precedents here. And so what kind of standing are you going to? This is like, think about it on a much lower level, but still an important one. Think about when Harry Reid decided to exercise the nuclear option with judicial confirmations. And so you set a precedent by breaking a tradition that then was used against you. Well, this is politics and politicians, and it's about power. Mainly.
Yeah, but I mean, Democrats play Calvin ball. They, it's good for you, not good now.
No,
it's okay
right.
Then.
Right.
And, that's the problem when you talk about norms, which they're supposedly defending. Norms means you defend them in self-defense in a way, preemptively, so that they won't be used against you. But that seems to have been blown up. And that does not bode well for the future. They think they're going to win the next presidency, and they're never going to lose again.
Yeah, right. But I mean, but that's sort of my point too. Once you start to, they act like the ends justify the means, so why shouldn't we? Right.
Right. And think about also, just sorry to interrupt, the way that Americans now view, and half of the country around are Republicans, view these institutions. I mean, you're talking about there is no trust in media. I saw a poll that shows that more people trust big oil, like one of the most hated institutions in the media, and now the FBI. I mean, acting in this way, and then the media defending them. Who can you trust? I can't even read a Washington Post story anymore and trust that a normal, straightforward reporter is telling me the truth. So it's really a bad situation for the country.
I wanted to get to your take on Pensacola because of your writings on gun ownership and the history of gun ownership in the United States. You had the family of Joshua Caleb Watson, the hero at Pensacola, yesterday say, particularly his brother, say, look, My brother was a marksman. The idea that he shouldn't be able to carry a gun on a military base to protect himself, or the idea that somebody charged with security at the military base shouldn't be armed to protect themselves in just such an instance, is absurd to me. And it seems to me, before we get into whether the military training of foreign military officers and all of that, the first basic question is safety at military installations. Why aren't people with security responsibilities allowed to be armed?
Well, I think it was Fort Hood where I was first surprised that most military personnel can't carry their sidearms or any weapons within the military forts and installations. It's absurd. I mean, the argument often is, hey, you're not trained. The person's not trained. He's just going to shoot innocent people. It's anarchy. We don't need that. But these people are almost all trained to use firearms. The notion that they shouldn't be able to protect themselves on a military base is it's mind-boggling. I'm sure most Americans don't even know that that's the case.
And they're currently going to suspend the program. There's 300 Saudi Arabian nationals being trained in Florida alone, 900 nationwide. Do you agree with that? I don't know. I obviously we've had a problem with that program before, right? And obviously, at least the screening process is not, done in a way that stops Islamic terrorists from joining. So until they figure that out, I don't see why they would continue to allow that sort of program.
He is David Harsanyi, senior writer for National Review, author of First Freedom, A Ride Through America's Enduring History with the Gun, From the Revolution to Today. David, thanks as always for joining us.
Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Want your home's furnace to stay safe and reliable? And want to prevent any potential problems before they happen? At your local 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning, we recommend an annual furnace inspection and tune-up. Right now, get big savings on a furnace tune-up. Call 855-1-HOUR. Because not taking care of your furnace, that's just cold.
Your comfort is just a call away. Call 1 Hour.
Terms and conditions may apply. Call for details. Independently owned and operated. Licensed in the respective state or county.